Michael Popok, Legal AF, Donald Trump and Donald Trump alone is to blame for him operating in New York, having New York corporations and limited liability companies subject to New York law, subject to a New York attorney general, subject to New York juries, subject to New York state court judges, subject to New York federal judges, subject to New York appellate judges, state and federal. And if he doesn't like the fact that he's got democratically appointed judges and a jury, he can't get a fair shake in New York because it's a jury, who does he have to blame? Donald J. Trump. Not his lawyers, not his kids, not his executives who all have his face and his last name. Donald Trump. He doesn't have to operate in New York. He can live in New York. Doesn't mean his company has to be incorporated in New York and subject to New York law and a New York attorney general and New York judges and so on. He could have been a Florida corporation. And therefore, if you were to sue him, it would be the Florida attorney general, who is generally a Republican. Or he could do what most of the Fortune 500 companies do, is they pick Delaware law and they go get incorporated in Delaware. And then they're subject to Delaware Chancery Court and Delaware Superior Court judges and Delaware juries. But he didn't want to do that either. Or he could have gone to any number of states that are trying to attract corporations by having hospitable pro-business environments. Just they're not named New York. He inherited that company, Trump Organization, from his dad. His dad incorporated in New York a gazillion years ago. I don't know when Fred Trump did it exactly. It was like between the Ice Age and the Stone Age, somewhere in there. And Donald Trump, in his infinite wisdom, kept the company there. And when you keep the company there and you operate there, and I've been a New York lawyer for 32 years, so let me talk about it. You subject yourselves. You're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. You take whoever the governor is. You take whoever the chief judge of the justice system is. You take whoever the attorney general is. You know, whether it was Elliot Spitzer or a guy named Schneiderman or then Leticia James. These are your attorney generals. And they are generally progressive Democrats or something akin to it, as is whoever heads the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, whether it's Alvin Bragg or Cy Vance or Robert Morgenthau or anybody else. These are people that are on the blue side of the spectrum. And he knew that. He grew up in New York. He was a Democrat at one time. I know it's hard to believe. We never really talk about it on the MeidasTouch network. He was a Democrat. I don't know if he went to one of the weddings for Hillary, but for the kids, but he was certainly, invited, and he was a donor with the Democrats. He became a Republican very late in life. But he's known that, yes, he's lived in Trump Tower for the last 40 years, but there's other states to incorporate in. So for him to rail every day about the fact that he's getting railroaded by a state justice system that he himself not only chose, but year after year over the last 40 or 50 years affirmed that he wasn't going anywhere. Right? Yeah, he spends time down in Mar-a-Lago and he shoots out to Bedminster, New Jersey for the golf course, but he likes being a New York resident. And more importantly, his companies are New York residents. So I chuckle, but I want to make it clear on a hot take like this one, especially for those around the world. Donald Trump has one person to blame for him being subjected to the powers of the New York Attorney General, who's had the extraordinary power to go after persistent fraud in a civil setting and get disgorgement of hundreds of millions of dollars, shut down and dissolve businesses, ban executives, and require them to do all sorts of other things since the 1950s. That's when the law got on the books, Executive Law 63-12. No, it's not when I was a little boy, but I understand the history, the legislative history of the law. And Donald Trump, who was born then and grew up and, ran around at his daddy's ankles was an ankle biter for his dad for a long time, knows what he got into. He knows the political scene in New York. He knows it's almost invariably Democrats. We've had a couple of aberrational events. Rudy Giuliani somehow got elected. Bloomberg's really a Democrat, but he ran as a Republican to get reelected. Pataki was the governor once. But in general, you're going to go broke betting against New York not having in any given position senator, almost all Congress people, judges, and of course the Manhattan jury, that they're not going to be Democrat or Democratic. So for Donald Trump to say, I can't get a fair shake in this town, then you should have moved. You had 30 years to do it, 20 years to do it, 10 years to do it, even 5 years to do it. Like when you went to the White House, reincorporate somewhere else. It was before, if we could take the Wayback Machine with Mr. Peabody way back before he ran for president, he could have moved his companies, filed taxes somewhere else, loves Florida so much, loves DeSantis and then Rick Scott before him, incorporate down there. You wouldn't have a New York Attorney General up your whatever, proctologist style, with the powers of the New York Attorney General, most powerful Attorney General probably in the country in terms of her statutory powers. You wouldn't have that. You wouldn't have what you refer to as woke prosecutors going after you, or leftist, Marxist judges. Oh my. Oh my God. Lions and tigers and bears. Go live somewhere else. Incorporate somewhere else. Go do Delaware. He tried and he got caught. When Leticia James opened her investigation, she informed the judge, this Judge Engoron, that there was a problem, that they had opened up a Trump Organization corporation in Delaware, and she caught it. We reported on it on Legal AF. But he just thought about it too late, right? He could have made all of this go away. If he wants to kick somebody in the backside, he's got to kick himself. And that's all he has to blame. Similarly, as long as we're on placing the blame for the legal system on somebody, he complains in his recent social media posts that he can't get a fair trial because he's got the wrong judge in the wrong division. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. And it doesn't have a jury, as if a jury would be any better for him. And they don't like the fact that she's using her powers under 63-12 of the executive law. Let's unpack that for a minute, since we're placing blame squarely where it belongs, on the slender shoulders and the bone spur-footed of Donald Trump. When you have a case filed against you in the New York State Supreme Court, which is the trial level court in New York, you file it with a civil cover sheet and you ask for it to be either in the regular division, the regular court system, the regular part, we call it, or you check a box for it to go to the commercial division, and the clerks take a look at it and they decide whether it belongs in the commercial division or not. Leticia James didn't check that box, and very late in the game, Donald Trump tried to move it to the commercial division, and the chief judge there, the administrative judge, said, "No, it's fine with Judge Engoron, and it's obvious that you're moving it because you don't like the rulings." He didn't say that last part, but that's what the basis was. But early on, if Alina Habba wasn't asleep at the switch, I'm putting it nicely, she wouldn't have made a couple of errors procedurally. One, she could have asked then, before there were bad rulings, to move it to the other division, which is headed by 3 or 4 commercial division judges. By the way, I practice in the commercial division regularly. It's a very fine division. There's good judges in there. Some that I don't think are so great, but that's my own opinion. Same thing with the regular part. I think there's good judges in there, and there's judges that should retire. It's okay. My opinion. So she could have fought then, Alina Habba, to try to get it over if she wanted to get away from Judge Engoron. Well, the issue is they didn't know that they didn't like Judge Engoron until he had already ruled. And then it's like too late to try to, because now it looks like you're judge shopping. So that was Alina Habba's screw up. Or they consulted with Trump and they said, who is the guy? Leave him there. I'll beat him up. Don't take it someplace else. I'm not sure the judges over in the commercial division, and I've been in front of a few of them, would be much better for Donald Trump than Judge Engoron. I'm not sure about that. I don't want to name them, but I can think of one judge in particular that would be terrible for Donald Trump and probably worse than Judge Engoron. Probably 2. So I'm not sure they were fighting, kicking and screaming to go there. It's an interesting debate point to raise now. I didn't get the right division for the court. I wanted to be somewhere else. I'm not sure you wanted to be somewhere else. That could have been out of the frying pan and into the fire, depending upon the judge that would have been selected. That's one. 2, you've heard a lot about it. But first here on Legal AF and on the MeidasTouch Network, Alina Habba is screwed up. and didn't check the box. Now, I want to explain this because it's been kind of complicated. People think she didn't check the box for jury trial, and she was entitled to it, and therefore it's a screw up on her. Close. The New York Attorney General files what's called a RJI, and in that note of issue, we'll call it. Sorry, I said RJI. In the note of issue, tells the court that we're ready to go, ready to be set for trial setting, and check the box for bench non-jury trial. The other side has 15 days to sort of challenge that. If you think you're entitled to a jury trial, you ask for it then, you get a hearing, and you talk about it if you're not entitled to it as of right. Now, I'm not sure under Executive Law 63-12 and that unique set of statutes that you automatically get a jury trial. It could be that you get a bench trial unless you fight for it. But clearly, Alina Habba didn't fight for it. 15 days went by. She never even thought about it. And it may not be a mistake. We keep saying it's a mistake, and it makes interesting hot takes. But it could also have been a calculated decision by Donald Trump. I said this at another time at Legal AF. He might think, I don't know, this Judge Engoron from an Angora sweater, but the juries in Manhattan are going to hate me. And I don't want to go there. Let's stay with this judge. I'll pressurize and weaponize and go after this judge and his staff and everybody else. Gives me one easy target. And I don't know if I want a jury, which could probably be anonymous and I won't be able to intimidate. So I'm not sure it was a mistake. He says it's a mistake now because it's a convenient talking point. I didn't get a jury. I didn't get the right division. They're going after me under a body of law I don't like. That's it. It's been on the books since like 1956. But I don't like it. And a Marxist left-wing judge, democratically appointed, New York Attorney General who ran on a platform of going after Trump. By the way, she did. And the people of the state of New York elected her. What does that tell you? It's an elected office. Yeah, she's the chief legal officer of the state, but she's also a politician that runs for office. And people elect who they want. We picked our Manhattan district attorney. We picked, as New Yorkers, we picked our attorney general. We pick our governor. We elect our judges. That's how it works. If you don't like it, as I said earlier, Donald, you should have reincorporated somewhere else. But you like New York. You like the cachet of New York. And you like calling yourself a New York corporation. And now you're subjected yourself to your own worst enemy. Or your own enemy, which is Leticia James, the New York Attorney General. And so what I'm trying to analyze for you here on this hot take, hopefully people aren't thinking, Popok, where are you? Don't meander. I try not to meander on hot takes. I save that for the podcast. The point I'm trying to make is Donald Trump chose a New York corporation and to continue a New York corporation, subject to New York law, New York judges, New York juries, New York attorney generals, the law that the attorney general is using against them, all by its own self-design. He has no one else to blame but himself. Sure, Alina Habba screwed up a couple of times, or not. We've talked about the pros and cons of that analysis. But if he didn't like subjecting his entire financial empire to the largest fraud case in the history of New York, then he should have moved his corporation somewhere else. I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm not going to blow smoke or sunshine. I'm going to use my 32 years of experience in courtrooms and courthouses just like this one. I do it only one place, the MeidasTouch Network and their YouTube channel. Free subscribe. Help them get to 2 million. I keep saying that, but really help them. It's free. And the bigger they get, the more likely we're going to remain on the air and your voice is heard. And then watch the leading podcast at the intersection of justice, law, and politics. Think about that real estate. And that's on the MeidasTouch Network. We call it Legal AF. It is what you're thinking. And I co-anchor that on Wednesdays and Saturdays, and you can get it everywhere you get your audio podcast. Before I sign off, let me just tell you, we're in for a long ride with this trial that's going on with Donald Trump. 3 or 4 months of evidence. Don't get justice fatigue. Keep tuning in. Keep following what we're telling you is important about these things with our experience. It is important. we catch it, we examine it, we explode it, we put it back together again right here on Hot Takes like this one. Until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF episode, this is Michael Popok reporting.
Hey Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.